Hi everyone, it's Maria from Still Dreaming Homestead, and I just got home a little while ago. I went to town and did some shopping, and then I burnt a little fire to kill grass along one of my fences, and then I delivered some mail for a friend, and I'm finally back home. I checked the eggs and locked up the chickens, and now it's time to read out of our book, The Hair-Pulling Bear Dog, an adventure series about DJ Dillons by Lee Roddy. So now we're on chapter 11. And the title of that is Old Satchel Foot Outsmarts DJ. Wonder what that means. Well, we better get reading and find out. The next day, DJ and the lay preacher bounced along an old logging road toward the bottom of Devil's Slide Canyon. They were bouncing because that was a rough road. During the long, slow drive in a borrowed gray pickup with the Culvert Trap in the trailer behind the dog box, DJ told Paul Stagg about his father's question on remarriage. Now, do you remember what the Culvert Trap is? That's a big metal pipe. It's round, kind of like my arm would be around, or your arm. And the idea is for the bear to go in one side, and when he goes in after something stinky in there that he likes, and something yummy too. I think they're putting some strawberry jam and some fish. And when he gets in there, he's going to set off the trap. And down will come a door on this side, and down will come a door in this side, and he'll be stuck inside that culvert trap. That's if everything goes right. So let's see what happens next. The giant's voice rumbled in the dusty cab. You're against your father remarrying, DJ? I've been thinking about that. I don't want someone to take my mom's place, and yet I know that Dad's lonely. But maybe it'll be better now that Grandpa's become a Christian. Do you know he took out his fiddle last night and played? I sang with him, even if I do sound like a tromped-on toad frog, as Grandpa says. But it almost felt like before Mom died. The big man laughed. What'd your dad do? He just kept looking at me, but not saying anything. Seemed to be thinking. DJ, someday your father probably will get married again. He's got that right, and he should. But I'm sure he'd want you to approve. Can you? I don't think so. At least not now. They drove on, the fine dust feeling like sandpaper between their teeth. They had their windows down. They spent some time checking the area where the sow had caught up with the heroic little hero dog. At last, Paul Stagg stopped, removed his cowboy hat, took it off, and wiped his brow. DJ, we've looked and called until my eyes hurt and my voice is hoarse. If that little hair puller's still alive, he's no place close enough to hear us. DJ sat on the fallen log where he'd tangled with the mad mother bear nearly 2 weeks before. You think there's any chance that my dog's okay? Do you think there is? The giant's voice was gentle, but it still rumbled with a powerful feeling. I gotta be honest, DJ. No, I don't think that it's likely. But there's a chance? Long as nobody's seen his body or brought in his dog collar, there's a chance, I suppose. But not hardly any. Slowly, DJ sighed. I can't give up hoping, he said. I just can't. Hope's what keeps us going sometimes, DJ. Well, if we're going to get that trap set before dark, we'd best be a-going. The afternoon sun was already sliding fast towards the western canyon walls when DJ watched Paul Stagg carefully crawl backward out of the Culvert Trap. The smell of cat food bait with fish oil base made DJ's nose wrinkle. Whew, smelled terrible. The giant stood and said, There, it's all set for Satchel foot. You got that strawberry jam smeared around the area? All smeared, DJ said cheerfully. Smeared is another word for spread out. Paul rubbed his hands against an old gunny sack to try to remove some of that stinky bait smell. DJ again wrinkled his nose and turned to survey the area. He's looking all around. You pretty sure this is the best place for that trap? Best we can do with just one trap, DJ. Near's I could make out from what Mr. Yee told me when Tinsley Abbas told him, this is the bear's home territory. But it's practically on this old logging road. It's less than 2 miles off the paved county road and maybe a mile to the hermit's place. If I've got my bearings right, that is. You've got that right, DJ. But we're also right at the bottom of Devil's Slide Canyon. Do you know what a canyon is? A canyon is an area between two mountains. So it'd be this area in between these two big mountains. Straight up on both sides, as you see, the big man pointed, off over to that stand of prime timber is Jawbone Peak, where Mad River gets started from melting snows collected in hundreds of little creeks. The lay preacher's big hand moved on, drawing DJ's eyes with it. Paul continued, the riverbed's so narrow, that means not very wide. Through that canyon, the snow water gets moving pretty fast. That's where it got its name of mad, meaning like crazy. Wouldn't do for a man to fall in above those little falls there, but just below them, a half a mile or so from where we're standing, the stream bed widens out considerably. So the water slows up some. In fact, right below the trap, it's shallow enough to wade, if you're careful. DJ asked, so that's why old Satchel Foot calls this his home territory? Right you are, DJ. It's close enough to civilization for that sick bear to get easy man food. Yet it's also remote, which means in the wilderness, and primitive enough with these high canyon walls, heavy timber and brush. So he's got privacy too. My guess is that's why Abbas or no other hunter has been able to take him. He gives them the slip here in his own backyard. That's where he gets away. Think we'll get him? DJ asked, studying the iron bar doors poised above both ends of the sturdy metal culvert. We will if that bear gets a whiff of that old strawberry jam you put out, or if he smells this fish oil base, and if Mr. Abbas doesn't kill him first. Gotta take that chance, DJ. Well, it'll be dark if we don't leave now and try that hermit's place again. We gotta see if he'll loan us his hair puller, even as old as he is. Mr. Zierings came to the door holding the kerosene lamp high until he recognized DJ. He introduced Paul Stagg, who shook hands with the hermit. Then Mr. Ziering turned to the boy. I've been expecting you. Most likely you're looking for that little mutt of yours. DJ blinked in surprise. My dog? Same one you had when you was here a spell back with your daddy. You've seen my dog? Sure did. Well, what was left of him. He come a-dragging in here some days back, more dead than alive. My dog's alive? Was the last time I seen him. Where is he? I want to see him. That's what I'm trying to tell you, son. That there poor old mutt came up here, busted up something awful. I took care of him as best as I could. Coming along right nice too. But then this afternoon, he got up on his legs, real shaky like, and then took off. Ain't heard hide nor hair of him since. That's a funny saying, isn't it? Hide or hair. That's like skin or his hair. He hasn't heard from him at all is what that means. Though I took Tug and we went a-looking for him till near sundown. DJ turned to Paul and exclaimed, My dog's alive, Paul! He's alive! My dog's alive! When DJ and Paul left the hermit's place with Tug on the chain, the boy's heart was singing with happiness. The big man cautioned DJ not to get his hopes too high, but the boy couldn't help himself. They made camp well back up in the river in case it rose during the night. DJ could barely eat his dried fruit and jerky because of his excitement. Paul moved to one end of the dry timber deeper into the campfire. Remember, your dog was still mighty weak when he took off from the hermit's place. If he was heading home, he's got a powerful distance to go. In that case, powerful means a long way to go. Plus dangers from the land, the weather, and other animals. He might not make it even yet. DJ shook his head vigorously. No, he's gonna make it. And maybe he's not heading home. Maybe he heard us calling and went looking for us. Maybe he's close enough now that he could hear us. I'm going to try calling him again. He finished his last peek of jerky, cupped his hands to his mouth. Here, Zero! Zero! Hero! Come on, boy! Come on! The mountain echoes mocked the boy, hurling back his call through the thickening darkness of night. But even though DJ listened so hard, he seemed to hear his own heart beating. There was no answering joyous bark. At last, weary but still hopeful, DJ in his tin pants and coat curled up by the fire and slept. Paul was feeding the hounds when the boy opened his eyes. The eastern sky was paling, and the stars were almost gone from the high rim above the steep, forested granite canyon where they camped. Granite is a type of rock. It's very hard. DJ started to say good morning, but he stopped. The giant was peering across the river in the dense forest that clung to the steep hillside. Paul Stagg stood with his head cocked to catch the sound on that mountain breeze. DJ stood and listened too. It only took him a second to guess the truth. That's Mr. Abbas and Nell's hounds we're hearing. From the way they're bearing, they got old Mr. Bear lined out already. Chase is hot, coming this way, right toward the river. If that's old Satchel, which is the only bear they'll run, they're chasing one of the smartest ones I've ever heard tell about. Likely he'll try some tricks when he gets to the river. Tricks? Water's the best chance that bear's got, DJ. He's heading straight for it. I guess old Satchel will use this river to help lose his scent. See, the dogs can't follow the scent in the water because the water will just wash it away. And scent is the smell of the bear. It's shallow enough here below the trap that he can wade the river. Maybe cross and recross, go back and forth across it to confuse them even more. In fact, I've got a notion that's what he's been doing all those chases recently. Dogs can't follow scent in water, you know. That's hopeful, DJ admitted. But what chance do we have that he'll go for our trap? The hounds are jumping him so early like this, that bear may not have time to have himself any breakfast. So if he confuses the hounds at the river, he's likely to move off a piece and try to grab something to eat. And the easiest thing around is waiting for him there right in our trap. You think he might really do that? He might, especially if he gets a whiff of that food we put out for him. A whiff means a smell. Well, and bears have very good noses. Well, we best get ready. If that bear comes a-smoking through here and loses Mr. Abbas' dogs, I'm pretty sure will happen, then it's our turn at old Satchel. What about our hounds? They're probably going to have their hands full holding their muzzles. Our hounds. We're probably going to have our hands full holding their muzzles so they can't bark and scare him off. But we won't loosen them unless we have to. We won't let those dogs go chasing unless we have to. They'll hear the other dogs anyway. Well, let's get breakfast over with so we'll be ready when we get the chance. By the time the sun had climbed above the eastern canyon rim, DJ and Paul had heard the Abbas hounds make several losses. But they had sorted out the trail again, judging from the sound. Paul smiled at DJ. Well, guess they got that bear lined out again, but they're sure not a-looking at him. He's getting closer and closer. That was Jason got home. Did you hear those dogs barking like crazy? All right, so let me find my place again. Well, guess they got that bear lined out again, but they're sure not a-looking at him. He's getting closer and closer. And if he can make this water, old Mr. Bear is plumb likely to get clean away from them again. Suddenly, DJ heard the hounds baying change. He asked anxiously, "It sounds like they're baying treed." Remember, treed is when that bear goes up a tree and then they've got him. The big man cocked his head to listen. "Sure does, DJ. But that can't be. Not 2 minutes ago, those hounds were lining him, but they sure weren't looking at him." Well, DJ said after listening again, that sounds like a bear and a dog fight to me. Can't see how that could be. But that's sure right. Sure what it is. Right enough. You mean they got our bear treed? Don't rightly see how it happened. But it sure's what those hounds are telling the world. Well, we'll soon know because the hunters will come to those dogs. The boy didn't know how long it was before he heard a heavy rifle explode down the canyon. The sound bounced against the granite wall like a thunderclap. Have you ever heard thunder before? It's a very loud boom. The sound passed DJ and Paul Stagg before falling into silence towards Jawbone Peak. DJ looked up anxiously. Think they got him? Before the big man could answer, a second shot rang in the distance. When that sound also faded up the canyon, DJ saw the look of concern on Paul Stagg's face. 2 shots, DJ said softly, making sure the bear's dead. He's dead right enough. DJ asked, how can you tell? Listen to those hounds. Different sound to them now. Hear it? DJ listened, aware there was a difference in the trail hound's tone. He looked up at the big man for an explanation. When the gun goes off, a good hound figures the bear is dead. So the hound rushes in, expecting to grab the bear's carcass and worry it some. You know, they'll bite on it and shake it. Makes the dogs feel good. Sort of a reward for winning the chase. And the sound the Abbas dogs are making now says that's exactly what they're doing. DJ slowly sank into a stump of lightning-shattered sugar pine. You mean they killed old Satchel Foot? Can't rightly figure out how it happened, but that sure seems to be the case. Well, there's only one way to make sure. Let's go. DJ shook his head. I don't feel much like it. I'll wait here. I know you're disappointed, DJ, but there's nothing that can be done. I want to see how bad that bear's jaw was hurt to make him turn into a stock killer. Sure you don't want to come along? DJ slowly shook his head. That means we've lost the bounty money Dad needed. Kathy will be hurt when she learns the bear was shot. How about you, DJ? How do you feel? Me? Sort of sick inside. You go ahead. I'll just ease up and take a look at our trap. Wow, I'm being interrupted a lot. A second. Hopefully that's the last interruption. You go ahead. I'll just ease up and take a look at our trap. Maybe some varmint sprung it or stole the bait. You meet me there, all right? Fair enough, Paul Stagg agreed. But in case that trap does have something else in it, like another bear or a mountain lion or anything, you stay back until I catch up with you. Keep that there brush gun of mine handy as an emergency backup, but don't shoot anything unless you have to, okay? A brush rifle would have a pretty short, I don't know how short, barrel, so that when you were in among the shrubs and little trees and stuff, you could use it without bumping it. Okay, DJ said listlessly. He just was so discouraged. He hoisted the short-barreled rifle Paul Stagg had loaned him. Back in his bear hunting days, the big man had explained that he'd cut the barrel down to legal limits. The standard issue long barrel Craig was too awkward to carry in rough country because the weapon was always getting caught in the brush. DJ double-checked to make sure the hounds were well tied and out of sight in a little shaded ravine. The dogs were eager to join the other hounds, which they could clearly hear, but Paul Stagg had firmly made them be quiet. Paul headed down the river to find a place to wade across. DJ started up at the river toward the trap. His feet moved heavily, feeling like his heart, because his heart felt heavy. Everything had gone wrong, except for one thing. His little dog probably was alive. But would the hair puller ever get out of this deep canyon in his weakened condition? When DJ was about 100 yards from the trap, he eased up behind a little sugar pine and peered carefully around it. The trap's twin doors were still standing high above both ends of the heavy metal culvert. The boy glanced down the river. It was the most beautiful blue-green where it widened and slowed across the shallows. There was a big rainbow trout there, the boy knew. There would be more of them, too. Ordinarily, the idea of fishing for such beauties would have excited DJ, but now he just didn't feel much, one way or another. Out of the corner of his eyes, he caught a movement from the far bank of the river. DJ focused on the brush, which swayed heavily. Something mighty big was coming through there towards the water. Instinctively, DJ froze against the rough bark of the tree. In a moment, a bear's muzzle poked through the brush and stopped, testing the wind. But DJ had no doubt. The sight of that deformed lower jaw told the boy that old Satchel was alive. The boy couldn't explain about the 2 shots and the sound of Abbas dogs worrying a carcass, but he sure wasn't the outlaw bear that they'd shot. DJ's heart leaped into a full racing rhythm as the bear moved free of the brush, walked heavily across the water-smoothed rocks. Old Satchel plunged into the shallows and waded in the river. The outlaw bear was every big as the boy remembered from their first encounter in the moonlight. DJ guessed the bear weighed about 300 pounds. If he had not been sick, the animal might have weighed even more. DJ's wet his forefinger and held it to the wind. It was coming down the canyon from the bear to the boy. DJ nodded to himself. Good. That meant the bear couldn't smell the boy. If DJ didn't move, the bear's poor eyesight would certainly keep the animal from spotting him. But what should he do? DJ's mind spun with possibilities. The bear was close enough to the trap he might smell the bait and go for it. Or he might smell the strawberry jam which he'd spread all over the area and follow that to the culvert. But would the outlaw enter the trap? DJ thought about going back for the hounds, but what good would that do? If they were turned loose, they'd take off after the bear, and he'd probably run to the rough country away from the trap. The boy watched the outlaw crawl out of the river and shake the water off himself just like a dog does. Suddenly, the big animal stopped and raised his head. DJ could see him testing the wind. The bear stood on his hind legs like a man. The bear's neck extended to full limit. He stretched. The swollen muzzle turned up, the nose sniffing loudly. Then the bear turned towards DJ and woofed softly. Quickly, the boy wet his forefinger again and held it up. His heart plunged through his boots. The wind had shifted from him to the bear. DJ looked back at the bear. He was gone. Instantly, the boy knew that the outlaw was now stalking him. The bear was going after him now. DJ clutched his rifle and looked around for a safe place. The closest was in the branches of the young tree above him. Ordinarily, DJ would have never risked the danger of climbing with a rifle, but he knew there was no cartridge in the chamber, and he was careful. Still, it was awkward climbing with a weapon. Fear made DJ successful. He made it to the first limb about 8 feet above the ground. Whoa, that's way taller than me. DJ started to settle on the limb and lean against the trunk. His boots slipped and the boy automatically grabbed for the limb with his free hand. But he jerked the other hand, accidentally hitting the side-loading Craig's cartridge magazine sharply against the limb. The shells popped out. Oh, man. Oh, no. DJ whispered as all the cartridges fell in bright little brass streaks to the ground. Now the rifle's totally useless. A growl jerked DJ's eyes away from the precious shells. The outlaw bear was barely 20 feet away, heading straight for DJ's tree. The way the bear was huffing and clicking his teeth, DJ knew the outlaw was mad, and he could climb a tree easily. In a moment, the bear reached both powerful forepaws around the tree trunk. He opened his mouth wide and began climbing towards DJ. Wow. That's the end of chapter 11. So tomorrow will be the last chapter in this book, and that will be chapter 12. And the name of that, the title is Danger at the Mad River Trap. Well, we know already there's a lot of danger going on because there's a bear with his mouth open looking up that tree at DJ. And DJ doesn't have any bullets in his rifle. He's all by himself. So we'll have to see what happens in tomorrow's story. I'll try to read it a little earlier for you. I wanted to tell you real quick. Today is February 22nd, 2022. That is a lot of twos, because February is the second month of the year. 22 has 2 twos. 2022 has a 2, a 0, and 2 more twos. That's a lot of twos. So I just want to tell you, I love you. I hope you have a wonderful day or night, whichever time you're hearing this story. And I look forward to talking to you and reading the next chapter. We've got to find out what happens to DJ. He's in big danger. If you know of anybody else that might like to hear this story, please share my channel with them and tell them about it. I also have stories that I tell for the younger children. And I think they might like that. So, good night. God bless you. Talk to you tomorrow.